Well, you know that if you counter the anti-Chinese propaganda, if you come out in the media and say, come on, folks, enough of this anti-Chinese propaganda, you won't get this job. You'll be out of a job once you're no longer a minister. Maybe you will lose your ministership or your ministry. I've noticed in the last 2 years the intensification of anti-Chinese propaganda in our media. Just ludicrous stories. Stories that you don't need to know what's going on, just to read them or listen to them, to know that they have come out of a production line of propaganda. And that propaganda is simply functional to Washington's intensification of the new Cold War against China. So I think China has a much better image amongst people generally than amongst governments, which actually don't even believe their propaganda, but they have to toe the line. Allow me to put it very bluntly. If you're a politician who wants a good job for yourself, right? Let's say you're the minister of something in Europe, in Italy, in Greece, right? And you know that your career as a minister is not going to last more than 5, 6, 7, at most 10 years. And you are a career politician, and then you want to move up. You want to go to Brussels to be given a cushy job, some kind of directorate of the European Union, some ambassadorship of the European Union, maybe become a commissioner in the European Union, maybe get a job in Luxembourg at the European Investment Bank. Well, you know that if you counter the anti-Chinese propaganda, if you come out in the media and say, come on, folks, enough of this anti-Chinese propaganda, you won't get this job. You'll be out of a job once you're no longer a minister. Maybe you will lose your ministership or your ministry, right? So people here in China must understand that it's not so much that propaganda works at convincing people that China is the big bad wolf. It doesn't work that way. You simply need to know that if you speak out against the propaganda, even if you don't believe the propaganda, your career is going to be jeopardized. There's a fundamental difference between what people think and what governments do. Ordinary people, I think across Europe, have a high regard for the Chinese people. They can see clearly that the Chinese people, whatever problems China may have, pulled themselves up from the bootstraps, and the last 30 years went from a situation where China was a third world country, a very impoverished country, to a country that is now at the forefront of technology, of social cohesion. They have a high regard for China. Maybe they're a bit envious because Europe is going in the other opposite direction. So this is where we've come to. These days, propaganda doesn't even need to convince people. It just needs to scare them off acting on what they know. So if you talk to, the average Greek or to the average Italian, they know that the diminution in the cooperation with China. You saw what happened in Italy. A neo-fascist prime minister was elected, Giorgia Meloni. In order for her to build a strong relationship with Brussels, she had to build a strong relationship with the United States, and to signal to the United States that she wants a good relationship with them, she ditched the Belt and Road agreement between Italy and China. That was a very cynical political move that was negative. It was a negative development, a bad development for Italy. The average Italian knows that. When I moved into the ministry, there was already an agreement between our creditors, not Greece, our creditors, and COSCO, China, the Chinese authorities, on the port of Piraeus. But it was a terrible agreement. And I didn't think it was a good agreement for COSCO either, because it was the conditions and the terms were imposed by Germany, that wanted COSCO to take the port of Piraeus, but did not want COSCO to have too much influence and too many degrees of freedom. What I did, I renegotiated with the Chinese government the agreement for Piraeus, which made it far better both for Greece and for China. The port of Piraeus is central to the new Silk Road, to the new trade route that goes through the Suez Canal, comes to Greece, and from there goes by train up to Hungary and Germany, which is where the main hub for distributing Chinese exports to Europe is. But if you look at the Greek trains that connect the port of Piraeus to Hungary, they're a joke. So I thought, all right, well, why don't we have a bigger agreement? Not just the port of Piraeus, but let's have a project for developing the railways. China has a fantastic track record at modernizing its railways from a state very similar to the one of Greece, more or less. And therefore, let's turn this into a big developmental project which strengthens the Silk Road and gives Greece technology that we wouldn't have. Berlin and Brussels came down on both our government and your government, effectively threatened both of us that all sorts of ills would befall both China and Greece if we continue with this agreement. They stopped this agreement, and then when I resigned, they went back to the old agreement, which was less beneficial to China and totally awful for us. But such is the defeatism of our peoples. People say, oh yeah, of course this is what they do, but what can we do, right? That you have this divergence between, as I said, and therefore I'm concluding in the way that I began my answer, what people know and what governments do.